Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Paranormal, the New Normal, the show where we try to make the world seem a little more normal. We've been failing at the mission for 3 years, but we still are out here giving it our best. And as always, I am joined by another guest who wants to try to show us their way of the world. And that guest today is Tom Snow, author and spiritual believer, which you're all like, you have a spiritual believer on your show? What? Yeah, I know. But you guys always know I'm down for a good discussion on this type of stuff. So let's see what we can find out, see what we can learn. That's the point of the show anyway. Welcome, Tom. Glad to have you this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Well, for the 23 minutes left of this morning. But so I'm gonna start the show the same way I always do. What brought you down this path to the spiritual world you're living in now?
Well, what brought me here was at 16, I was dying of cancer, terminal liver cancer. My mother just died the year before from cancer. And it's a long story, but it's in my first of 3 books where I tell the story of how I heard the audible voice of God in the midst of all the trauma of dying and not telling anybody about what was going on because uh, I felt the guilt that I had caused the cancer for both my mother and I. I was late 60s, mid 60s, late 60s. I was experimenting with asbestos dust, trying to create an invention to collect it off of cars.
Oh, okay.
Um, I was trying to, in my ego, trying to win a state science fair, which I did. But because asbestos dust is what, or asbestos is what car brake shoes were made of, from the early 1900s till 1997. And tons of it was going into the air and we're breathing it. And then we wonder why we're sick and dying. And my mother got cancer and died. I got cancer and go through a lot of trauma. Not going to spend all the time with the trauma, but it was a lot. So I felt guilt and I was anger. And then my father takes out a multi-million-dollar life insurance policy when he finds out instead of trying to take care of me. So now I have anger and hate, and I became suicidal and became rebellious and uh, became the second biggest drinker in my school, built a Harley chopper, rode with the Hells Angels, all these wonderful things. Uh,
Ooh.
so, I was hellion on wheels. I was 16 and dying, and God spoke to me audibly. Uh, he told me that he loved me and that someday he'd provide my perfect mate for me. When he did, the room sounded like it was full of thunder. It rocked the whole room like a train was going through it. And yet the voice of God and yet the love of God around me was so amazing. You can't compare it to anything on earth. It's one thing you can compare to the paranormal is you can't have the same with that same great love, that same great peace, that same great joy. So we'll get into the discussion of the differences maybe in a minute, because I know that's the gist of the show. But this was my miraculous moment, and I ended up meeting the Lord, asking him to come into my life. After a year and a half, the tumor that had grown inside my abdomen from hard as a rock, size of a walnut, had grown larger than a football, hard as a rock. And when God spoke to me again, all believers who meet the Lord can have the still, small, quiet voice of God filled with his peace. Like that's part of the real, true supernatural. And we can have that as believers, and we can hear that still small voice on a regular basis. And when God spoke to me and asked me if I wanted to be healed, and I'm at that point, I had met him and I no longer was afraid of dying, and I was done with my whole suicidal bit and my anger to my father and guilt to myself. And when I said yes, within 24 hours, that rock hard tumor bigger than a football, melted, dissipated totally from my body. So that's my introduction to the supernatural.
Wow, that should be a damn movie. That's that should be a movie. That's how amazing that story is. That should really be a movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
and when you get all the details, you go, "Yep, that fills out the movie." I agree with you.
like it seems like it seems like it should be a movie or one of those episodes of Supernatural where there's something else there besides besides God. Um, but what was it like hearing the voice of God? That's the like, what was it like? Because were you well? Actually, the question I should start with is: were you a believer before this? Were you brought up religious or?
I was brought up religious. I'm actually Jewish from both sides of the lineage. My father and mother were uh, full Jews, but there's a whole nother movie about the persecution of the family and the murdering of the Jews from Peter the Great in Russia over in the late 1800s. And if you remember Fiddler on the Roof, when all the Jews are being pushed out of Russia, because if you don't join the Russian Orthodox Church, then you had to leave. And they all moved to different parts of Europe, and some came to America. And my family had transitioned down to Austria, where they thought they were safe. And then comes Kaiser Wilhelm just before World War One, late 1800s, and he wipes out Jews just like Hitler did in the 40s, 30s and 40s. And so my grandmother's family was wiped out in front of her. My grandfather, another long story. It's one of the another movies,
Yeah,
but whole lot of lineage of persecution and murder of the Jews. And so when my parents got married in the 30s and war broke out in Europe in 39, they're like, we're going to go hide. And so they moved from Chicago to Texas, told all the families, we're becoming quote unquote Christians because we're going to hide because they were so fearful of persecution and of Hitler having spies in America to go kill all the Jews here in America. And so they're just scared to death. They moved to southern Texas, right on the border. Both my parents spoke 5+ languages fluently. Spanish was easy. They were right on the border. They could cross into Texas if they needed to. Texas to Mexico.
yeah.
And so they became quote unquote Christian. So I was raised in denominational churches, didn't know my Jewish history until probably 17, 18. So it was all hidden. And so I'm raised in denominational churches, but I don't know anything about, I believed God was real. He's out there, you know, far away. He's the God of the universe. He's way too big, way too busy to know anything about me intimately, right? That just makes no sense to my mind. And I don't think we as humans can conceive when the scripture tells us that he has every hair numbered on our heads. I don't think we can conceive that the God of the universe, as big as he is, could be that intimate or close. So I hadn't met him, wasn't a personal relationship yet. And then through all this trauma, uh, and I go into details in the first chapter of my first book. Anybody wants to read them, see some mind-blowing things. First book tells you stories that you wouldn't believe it. You just wouldn't, except that God is God. And this is that me being going through all this trauma of dying at 16 and coming through it, hearing the audible voice of God. So what did it sound like? Roaring thunder. Sound like a train. I was home alone, sitting in my family room, and I literally sounded like a train roaring coming through the whole room. And yet, and so like when his voice spoke, it was just that amazing. And then, but it was so backed by love. Like it wasn't full of fear. A lot of paranormal stuff adds fear. Okay.
Mhm.
Some people are enticed by that fear, but it doesn't change the fact that it's filled with all these unsettling feelings. God's feelings are totally different. So full of peace, so full of love. And when he told me he loved me, it's like there was no question. It was massive love. And when he told me then, and someday I'll provide your perfect mate for you, I'm sitting there thinking, part number two makes no sense. I'm 16, I'm dying of cancer. Maybe God's too busy running the universe. The angels didn't give him the message yet. He's been too busy to hear from them to know I ain't gonna be around soon. I'm gonna be 6 feet under. So second part made no sense. Well, since that's 56 years ago, I guess he must be right and I must be wrong.
Yeah, I would say so. Obviously. And from your, I mean, from some of your profile pictures on Podmatch, apparently you did find the perfect mate eventually, if I'm not mistaken.
Did what now? Oh, found my
Oh,
perfect mate. Yeah,
yep.
that wasn't my first marriage. Nobody says that. The first one was very traumatic. I have 4 good kids from that, but she was a very, very difficult person, very mentally challenged, very needed, deep psychological help and didn't get it. And literally, we're used to women talking about being abused by men. Well, I was abused by her. Now we were both very strong. I'm a strong character, and she was too, but I don't believe in hitting women or children, unless you're being attacked by a woman and she's a kung fu specialist and she's going to kill you. You know, in self-defense, yes, I believe in hitting in that case. Do I spank children? Yes, that's different than hitting or violent, right? So
Yeah.
but she literally would beat on me, physically throw things at me. If I didn't want to argue, which I didn't, she would take a 32-ounce glass of soda pop and ice. I'm laying on the couch because I don't want to argue. She'd dump it over my head to get me up. You know what I'm saying? Like I was going to start Abused Husbands Anonymous back in the 70s and 80s. So that's what I went through. So the first one wasn't that perfect mate. Now my second wife, who I've been with for 21 years, she's a gem. I tell her on her worst day, she's better than my ex on her best day.
Oh yeah. And I mean, yes, 100%. Men can be abused too. That's 100% true. Me- In the 70s and 80s, men's mental health wasn't talked about. It should have been. It wasn't.
Right,
Now that's starting to make a change. I am friends with a lot of men's mental health podcasters, and it's now a very talked about subject. Men we need to worry about men as much as we need to worry about women. So many men
right.
in the past have just unalived themselves because they couldn't deal with it, and there was nobody they could talk to because they would get ridiculed for it if they tried. So
Nobody believed you. Back in the 80s, my very best friend, who was the assistant pastor of a church I was in, my very best friend didn't believe me because my ex would put on the facade out in public. She
yep,
looked so perfect. As we were driving into church, myself and the 4 children, she would be lecturing us, demanding that we put on the big smile and nobody talks about anything because, even though I'm a I'm a strong male, she was equally strong, but I'm not going to fight her, right?
yeah,
So she put on this big front. Nobody believed her until one day he and I used to ride motorcycles together, and he came out to my place to pick me up. We typically just meet somewhere, but he came out and we lived a little bit in the country, and he got to see the side of her because for an hour she literally yelled and ranted at me because I wanted to go riding on a Saturday afternoon and leave her at home, with the kids.
yep,
And when he saw that for an hour afterwards, he went, "You know what, Tom? I'm sorry that I never believed you." That was the moment he got to see the truth because of how she ranted and raved and carried on. So,
yeah. A lot of times you don't believe things till you see them with these type of relationship problems. Like it's deception is amazing when people want to deceive everybody else. They can pretty damn easily, and that's the scary part of this world.
Right. And the men abusers are just the same, right? They put
Oh
on the
God,
fake
yeah,
facades. So it's the abusers put on a facade, and nobody can believe the abused underneath going, "Help, pay
yeah. Yep, it's
attention, please watch."
oh yeah. I got a brother-in-law who is that type of guy, and nicest guy in the world. If you talk to him, nicest guy in the world. Everybody loves him. The stuff he's done that we found out about later, we don't talk to them anymore. We don't talk to them anymore for other reasons too, but we don't talk to them anymore. They're just neither of them are good people. But he he hides it better than anybody. He is the most helpful. He'll help you fix anything in your house, but he's the friendliest guy, most polite guy you ever meet. But behind closed doors, oof, those when he snaps, it snaps.
Oh, and that's
So
that's that's the nature of abusers. It's just as
yep,
you say, it's only now becoming more known that men have been abused, and some, and it's like not all of us are passive or anything. It's just, it's just some people like
and,
myself don't want to fight, don't want to,
and exactly. I mean I'm not a pacifist by definition, but I mean, I also never raised a finger towards anybody in my life because I don't believe it's the right like you, I don't believe it's the right thing to do. I don't it's not the right path in life. Like
right.
you're not nothing good's gonna come out of that. So I 100% understand. But let's get back to you, back to your amazing story here. So, what made you want to go write a book about the dark side versus the good side, evil versus light?
Okay. Well, through the years, starting in the 70s, I saw many, many miracles in the power of God. I was raised in what was called the charismatic move, um, which was just a powerful move of God. And we saw miracles in the power of God all the time. And I had a spiritual father, and he and I were very involved in spiritual warfare. And I'm talking about dealing with very demonic things, things you read in the Bible, things you go, some people might question, is it just stories? Uh, I've dealt with demon possessed people that literally, I and two ladies were out fishing on a river because I love fishing and they wanted me to take them fishing. And two demon possessed men come up around the corner. There was nobody else on that river that evening. And they came up, outclassed me physically. I'm an outdoorsman. I was 5'8", 285 pounds. They were 6'4" to 6'6", 350 to 400 pounds, and more muscle than fat. They come wading up the river, and the atmosphere is so thick with rape and murder. There's a whole story if you'd like to hear it, but how the power of God changed that. So many things we saw in spiritual warfare. So when you deal with the powers of the world, and I'm going to say something very distinct. There's only two powers in this world. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but there's the power of God and his angels underneath. There's the devil, Lucifer, Satan, who was cast to earth from heaven, and a third of the angels went with him, and they're the second power. And that's all we're dealing with. And I know people say that's just too black and white, because, and you and I are going to discuss paranormal, but it's like all these shades of gray and all these things. Well, I'm telling you that there's God, and then you've got the masquerade, which is my third book, Evil's Great Masquerade, which is dealing with all the powers of the God over this earth. And when you learn to deal with that, that becomes the source. And that's spiritual warfare is literally dealing with standing with the power of God against all the work of the enemy and seeing that power of God totally take out the power of the enemy.
Yeah, I mean and you're right. There is. I mean, there are two great powers in this. I'm not going to deny that there are two great powers. I agree with you on that. I mean, is there intermediaries? Is there middle workers? I mean, I think there kind of is, but what side they're aligned to, you never know. That's the
Mhm.
thing. And you said it in your one book, like the occult hired a better PR team, which I love that line because that's so true. I mean, there are so
Hmm.
many more things out there that lead young people. Because when you were 16 dying, you could have got enticed by another side too. It didn't just have to be God. Like there could have been another side trying to entice you too. And it seems like they might have been trying to a little bit with the Hell's Angels and whatnot.
They
Even
did
though,
for 8 months. I went haywire. Like as I say, the devil tried to destroy me for 8 months after I had met the Lord. All of a sudden, I went totally haywire because I didn't feel God inside of me. I didn't feel the presence of God, and a lot of people do when they ask the Lord in. My brother, who told me, the things about how to meet the Lord, it's like he had the Star Spangled Banner. I was so full of hate, anger, guilt, you know, unforgiveness. I mean, I couldn't feel a thing. So for 8 months, the devil tried to destroy me, and I got really close. Going to I was going to blackmail my father for taking out a multi-million-dollar insurance policy on me. He thought I didn't know. I knew before he knew. And
yeah,
he never even talked to me. He took out this insurance policy, life insurance policy. I was going to blackmail him, and I was going to take my motorcycle, my Harley, and run it off the Grand Canyon to my own death. That was my plan for those 8 months. And I was going to put a letter inside my clothes to expose his fraud. He'd lose the payout and hopefully go to jail. I mean, that's how anger. So how I didn't end up being destroyed, it's only the grace of God. It really is. But I did see God's angels in that time, not physically, but like I would drive home drunk on my motorcycle out on a 4-lane highway, and I'd be on the rightmost side, and I'd end up waking up on the leftmost side, ready to go into the ditch, to all of a sudden just get shoved back over, like I'm blacking out on the motorcycle, and then wake up. I'm drifted all the way back over 4 lanes, ready to go ditch, and just get shoved back over. So God has his angels, as you said. There's the God, there's the true God, and then there's the God of this world, and each side does have their angels. God has his angels, the devil has the fallen angels, but they all, as in that book, as I quote in the scripture, they masquerade as angels of light. So the new PR team masquerades to fool everybody.
well, I mean, kind of the same thing. All of the collaborators of Epstein Island have been doing for decades, acting like they're these great people who masquerade in the light and run all these charities and want to help the public. Yeah, behind closed doors, you're doing a lot darker crap than that, and you don't want to admit it. I, I say I've been saying it for years. Eyes Wide Shut was trying to show us something about this world, and no one wanted to listen until it was too late.
Oh, there's a lot of charlatans. There's a lot of false prophets. A lot of people who say, I'm from God. Okay. And a lot of people doing quote unquote God's work, and they're charlatans. And they're, as you say, they're connected to evil, and they're pocketing all the money. They'll give all the cries for help the children, help these people, help this, and they'll, even help the animals. And then you go and you look at their financials, and you find out they're pocketing the majority of all that money that good people with good hearts want to support. So there's a lot of falseness, false prophets, charlatans. You got to watch out.
I mean, yeah, in this day and age, you have to watch out for everybody. I mean, in this day and age, you can't trust individuals, you can't trust organizations, you can't trust government organizations nowadays for many reasons. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
don't even get me started on how corrupt CPS DCF is in every state, like, and how they tied in other things that are horrible in this world. Like, it's a whole nother that's a whole nother discussion on a different podcast. But
Right.
it's the world is so corrupt. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I forget who it is. There's a rapper that actually did a song. Oh, Ice Cube. I mean, Ice Cube had a point when he said everything's corrupt. Like he said that 15 years ago, and he wasn't wrong, and nothing has changed. I mean, people are getting better, I think, slowly, but the spiritual world, paranormal world, opening up a little bit more, and more people getting involved with these workers of the light. They they are helping a lot, I think. And the spiritual awakening is happening across the world, and more and more people are waking up to see the truth. But it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be everybody in the world sees it at one time. It's going to take years and years to get to that point, and None of us may be alive when that happens, but it'll happen eventually. I mean, I'm almost 40. And I know I'm not gonna be alive when it happens. I guarantee it. Like it's not gonna happen the rest of my lifetime. But so
I hear you. I hear you. Well, I think that we all have to learn to do our due diligence before we put our verbal, physical, money support behind anything. Like you can't just buy any, you can't take anything on the surface, and we have to dig into it. And if it's corrupt, then we need to be able to challenge it.
exactly. I mean, it's like Ray Stevens said, you're not Ray Stevens. Oh yeah, well, Ray Stevens. Yeah, your flag decal won't get you into heaven anymore. So it's it's simple truth. But you talk about though, like how occult in their book about how occultism became like kind of a modern wellness, like, and
Hmm.
how it became mainstream. I mean, look at our media, look at our TV shows, our movies. I love horror movies. I love them. They're entertaining, but that's the majority of what comes out nowadays is horror movies about demons, about the devil, about possession, and it's like, why? When did this become mainstream? The Exorcist scared the crap out of everybody and made them become more religious. This isn't what these movies were supposed to do. Like now, people love them; they love the idea of it. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, you're 100% right. That is the occult's PR team doing their work right there.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And
They decided to move from fear, even though that side still exists, right? And people do deal with that, but they realized that the mainstream, how to bring the majority, was to quit pushing, all the ancient god deities of fear and the ancient demons. Uh, and their nature hasn't changed. They really are that bad, but they put on a whole new mask, a whole new masquerade. They got a new PR team. They said, how do you win the masses? How do you fool the masses? Right?
yep.
I've got a chapter in my book on how to fool the masses, and uh, they're really they're good at it now. They're really good at it.
Well, how do you think the world of news plays into it? Because all these, you watch any news channel, whether it's CNN, Fox News, pick one, doesn't really matter. They're all, in my mind, evil. They all are. They all try to depress you. They all try to bring you down by telling you the worst stories possible. Yeah, they'll throw in a cute puppy story once in a while just to keep people watching. But all you hear about today is people dying, people war in every part of the world, people missing, people kids missing, kids taken. I see stuff on Facebook every day about kids getting taken. So it's what's going on? Like why it wasn't like that in the 70s and 80s. Like the news was more about like local events and things happening around locally rather than just the world is going down to hell.
Yeah. Well, I think that they realize that audiences have less and less attention spans, right? Where someone back 30 years ago would have spent an hour paying attention to a nice show, they'll only listen for seconds now. So they've learned how to play on sensationalism. So what is sensational? What can grab someone's attention because you only get a few seconds to grab it. And so I think they've been playing on that, and I agree with you. That's not good.
No, it's not. I mean,
Did we get frozen here?
well, my internet decided to switch off for a second. I don't know what happened there, but forces of evil working against us. I'm telling you. But
There you go.
it happens all the time. But what I was saying was before all of a sudden went black here was a former friend of mine used to say like all the time like I don't watch the news because it's just depressing, and if I want to be depressed, I don't need to. I don't need outside sources to do that. I could do that in my own life without help. Like, why do I need to? And I'm like, and I told him like I agree with you. I never realized that's why I don't watch it, but that's that basically is why I don't watch the news, because it's not that I don't care about stuff happening around the world. It's just I don't need to be brought down more in a life that's hard enough to live in this day and age. Because
Yeah.
everybody struggles in this day and age. There's no happy idyllic life like there was in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Like now, it's just everything is bad. But if you think about it, it was not. It only seemed idyllic back then. Like your story, things were hidden behind closed doors, and everybody just put
Hmm.
on their best smiles out in public, and everything seemed like suburbia, like a suburban
Right.
dream. But that behind closed doors, you don't know what was happening. There was a lot of horrible stuff happening that we don't even need to name.
Right.
But I want to get to this because I saw what you said about these certain topics, and this might be where we disagree a little bit because you talk about Reiki, chakras, energy healing, and I have a feeling your theory on it is going to really disagree with someone like me who's talked to a lot of these energy workers.
Hmm.
So tell us what your belief is on first before I dispute it.
Okay. No problem. And I think it's good if we can have open discussions on what we disagree about. That's no problem.
Yeah, of course.
Um, yeah. Once again, going back to there's only two powers. There's the power of God, and then there's the ruler of this world who's put on his new PR team to fool the masses. Well, God, the God of the universe, doesn't do dog and pony shows. Like he has more power than the devil. The devil is Lucifer's the greatest of all of his creations, the most powerful, the most beautiful. We think of him, Hollywood tells us he's wears a red suit, got this ugly face, got a tail and a pitchfork and horns, right? You know, that's the devil. And all of his demons are these ugly gargoyle, hideous things. So Hollywood tells us that, but he's not. And he's actually the most beautiful of all God's creations, the most powerful, but he's still limited. God's unlimited, he's infinite. But of the finite creatures, we're way down on the list. But, because man's just down here, but the devil is, if we're 6 feet tall, he's 50 feet tall. Okay.
Yeah.
And his demons, that spirits that fell with him, they're all a lot more powerful than us. There's a whole spiritual realm around us. If we could see it, it would blow your minds. It's all around us, angels and demons, always waiting for permission because God set the parameters for the world that neither side can operate unless we give permission. That's why that he's always asking us to yield to him. But the devil who raised us as the God of this world, we've been trained like mice to run the maze. So he can ring a bell, we react instantly. He can put a piece of cheese out here, run a buzzer. We will follow pattern because we were raised that way. Well, you've got the devil with his PR team, and they're out here offering 1,000, 10,000 different options: universal energy, energy healing, Reiki, chakra, all the things that would stir all of our supernatural wanting. We want to all know and touch the supernatural. There's part of us in each of us that was created that we're looking to touch the supernatural. God made us that way. Now, I'm telling you, there's only one true God and only one way. And I will prove in my book, and if people want to read it, that by science, by the actual structure of the atom, that God did speak the world into being in 6 days, in 6 sentences in Genesis, and that he still holds the world together by the word of his mouth. And most people will disagree who's probably watching this, but I challenge you, go read the book, and I will prove to you by the atomic structure, the very truth, that if God did do that, then his word is true. So therefore, all these other forces being offered in 10,000 options to the universe, the universal energy, to Reiki to energy healing to you name it. 10,000 options are just the new PR to fool the masses. Because the devil, one thing he'll do is he'll put on a dog and pony show all day long to pull the masses away from God. Okay, remember, Satan got kicked out of heaven. He hates God. He wants to get back at God. And how does he get back? We're God's creation. We're the ones who get choice. We get to choose who we go with for eternity. We only have 100 years plus or minus on this earth. I only had almost 16. Um, that gets to be our choice. This is our testing ground. I'm not belittling family, friends, work, life, right? We have, but those are all part of our life. But spiritually, we only have 100 years or less to make choice. And the devil who hates God says, I'm going to give 10,000 options, dog and pony show, every option to the supernatural, paranormal, you name it, every option that the masses will choose not to walk with God and they'll die because he hates God and he knows where he's going in the end. And his demons are going in the end, who all appear as angels of light. And he wants to drag as many of us down as he can.
Which, uh, see, it's interesting because I've had so many energy workers tell me like they work with archangels, Michael, Gabriel, and like they name these angels that they work with, and
Mm-hmm.
you really think like I know you say God doesn't like dog and pony shows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he used to back in the older days. He used to do his dog and pony shows back in the biblical days. He apparently did it once in a while. He had his son do it, from what we're told.
Well, see, that's the difference, though. Doing miracles and seeing the power of God when he wants to move, right? He healed me and saved me. I told you about, we never got into it, the two demoniacs in the river, demon filled men that were going to and rape, kill me and rape and kill the two women, and how that was stopped. How things just like in the Bible, yes, there's miracles, there's the power of God, but he uses it not as a show. He doesn't do it like, I was on with an atheist just last year, and he's like going, "Hey, you say you get to hear God, his still small, quiet voice, right?" I go, "Yeah, we all can who believe in the Lord. Comes with his peace." And he goes, "Okay, well then just tell him, say, pretend his name's Michael. Mike, this is Michael, and have Michael tell God right now that I'm asking him to tell me blah 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 blah." And he says, "Go ahead and get that info from God." And I went, "I'm not doing that." He goes, "But you said you can hear God." I said, "Yeah, when he wants to speak." But I said, "We don't play the games. We don't play mediums. We don't play psychics. We don't play the pretend. God doesn't put on dog and pony show for anybody." And he was all PO'd at me because I wouldn't play his game. Here's the thing: the devil will put on a dog and pony show any day. And remember, and in the scripture it says, Satan masquerades as an angel of light, and so do his workers. So you think that his demons can't look like an angel of light and they can't lie to you? Oh my God, the God of this world, who is the liar of liars. You don't think he can't say, when he acts as an archangel and he says, "My name's Michael" or Gabriel? Let's just pretend that they might lie.
I mean,
They're angels. They are. They're fallen angels, and they are powerful beings, but they can appear in any form they want, in any way they want. This is what defines 10,000 options that I will call the wrong side of the supernatural, the wrong side of paranormal.
which, yeah, I mean, you're not the first person to make this argument with me, so it's not like I haven't heard this before. It's out there. It's out there. That's a possibility that some people. I mean, but do you truly believe 100% of these light workers, energy workers, are all working under the devil, or do you think there are actually some that may have been, maybe, have been given power by God to try to convert people to Him?
I actually believe all, that other than those who've met the Lord and walk with Him, because there is a true side, right? Let's define the truth versus a counterfeit. I talk about this in the book. A counterfeit. What's a counterfeit? If you don't have the real, then a counterfeit would mean nothing. If you don't have a real $100 bill,
Exactly. Yeah.
what would a counterfeit $100 bill replicate? There's no $100 bill. They only have 50s, right? Someone offers a counterfeit $100 bill and you go, I'm not that stupid, right? But if you've got this $100 bill and it's worth $100 and you got a bunch of them and it's worth a lot of money, if a counterfeit looks so daggone good, right? That's
Yeah.
the definition of a counterfeit. It has to replicate the real. So the real power of God exists. The real, value in God's relationship exists. So the devil's over here with counterfeits that look so daggone good that it can fool the masses, right? Counterfeit money is getting harder and harder to detect, right? You have to have special tools. You can't just, you and I can't look at a $100 bill with our eyes and go, "Oh, this is real. This is counterfeit." I'm not that good. I don't know about you, but I
I
don't work.
mean, only if it's a really shoddy job.
There you go. But therefore, a counterfeit has to, if it's a true counterfeit, it looks so daggone good that nobody with natural eyes could dare figure it out. Okay, so where are these powers coming from? Well, here's the thing. There's 10,000 options over here, and they're leading you to powers. But let's just pretend, that the devil, Satan, Lucifer got kicked out of heaven, hates God with everything he's got. A third of the angels fell with them. They hate God. And who's God's creation? Us, right? Like he wants to give eternity to mankind. And so now Satan and his angels hate us as deeply as they hate God. Now, if you have that motivation and you've got a whole new PR look of, hey, we'll come across with 10,000 options of paranormal, supernatural, energy, this, that, and the other, the universe. We'll come across as the nice gods. We'll come across as the nice angels. And they're the liars of liars. And they'll be like, oh, we're God's angels. There are 10,000 gods. There are. They just have little g.
Yep.
There's
I
only
well,
one big G.
well, I mean, yeah. When you say little G, I tend to think of like the old school, like ancient gods, Greek, Mayan, Egyptian, Norse. Take your pick. But I mean, what do you think
Well,
about?
I'll take them and I'll add to it all the new PR team, right? The whole new
Yeah.
PR team said, oh, we're from God and we're his angels. And we'll lie to you. We'll say we're Michael and Gabriel and we're your new spirit guides and we're your new angel guides and we're going to lead you to all this power. Well, here's the sad news. When people, and we all have that need for the supernatural, right? God built it into us. We have a need. So here's someone who put on the dog and pony show all day long. And so we're like, oh, look at all this wonderful stuff. And it's God. It's not this occult. It's not this evil. It's not satanic, because we know that side exists. But this stuff looks so good. And we're touching into God and we're getting the supernatural. Here's something that most people don't know until it's almost too late. You're being led down a road to destruction, but you don't know it. And it's like, remember, Satan hates us. His demons hate us. Those spirit guides who say they love you hate you. Oh, you mean it's like an abusive husband or wife that abuses their mate? Oh, yeah, exactly. And they're going to lead you down the road. And then all of a sudden, they pull the rug out from underneath you because now you went down all these spiritual paths and you thought you were touching into the spiritual realm. And then all of a sudden, when the rug gets pulled out and darkness takes over, people they lose it. They become suicidal. And that's the devil's goal. He really wants us to die. He just hates us that much.
Well, because it's jealousy. That's why they hate us. It's the jealousy because that's why they fell to begin with. It's because they were jealous of how God was treating us. Uh, but and they want us to die so they can have our souls. Like that's everybody knows that. That's basic scripture 101. But
Hmm. Right.
if you went to Sunday school for one day of your life, you would know that for a fact. But and I, as much as I dreaded Sunday school back in the day, it did teach you things. This it did. But let me ask you this:
Hmm.
what do you what do you think about extraterrestrials? What do you think they are? Are they just
I talk about that in my book too. It's How to Fool the Masses. And I do think that there are, there may be aliens from other planets. I'm not so smart that I can't prove there aren't aliens. But I will tell you that a lot of encounters are, remember, these beings, these spiritual beings are pretend to be, well, they're angels of light. They pretend to be the angels of light. Well, they can manifest themselves in many forms. Well, that would include uh, not just the scary demon side, but that can include in the angel of light side anything. Well, how about some of these activities that happen? How about Esther, you know, alien beings?
you know,
Could they, if they can put on any facade, could they look like alien beings? Could some of these be false encounters? Well, you gotta know. I don't know that there aren't true aliens coming from other planets. I'm not that smart. Don't think any of us are. But are there false things? Well, I would say this: whatever the devil can do to pull people down any lane, I can tell you what ghosts are, what ghost encounters are. When you go to mediums and psychics and they tell you your dead relatives, I'll reveal it in the book. I'll tell you now where all that comes from. And if all that is true, I believe it is, they can put on to be alien beings. And so, these people who think they're having either alien encounters or they're connecting to these alien spiritual forces that are giving them great revelation. And by the way, it feeds our ego. This whole side of the enemy feeds our ego, going, ooh, we're touched into something deeper that, just those dumb, stupid, regular people, especially dumb Christians, don't, they just so stuck in missing that they just say God's the only real God. So they're just so stupid. Feeds our ego, and the enemy's feeding our ego. But in these encounters, there are people who, now, I haven't done it personally. I've dealt with the enemy. I will tell you, there's some stories I'll tell you where I've called out in the name of Jesus. I have another audible story for you. We'll go back
ooh,
to that in a minute if you want, where the devil's
definitely.
audible. Um, but these alien encounters, people have, they have these alien beings and they're probing at them or whatever. And people have started to call out on the name of Jesus. And in the midst of that, calling out on him, all of a sudden, these alien beings ran off. They dissipated instantly. Because that would tell you right there, it's demonic force. It's not, though, if they were real aliens from a planet that doesn't know about Jesus, they're going to be like, what's that? Who cares?
Well, I mean, a lot of people who I've had in the show who are very religious and very God fearing, God believing, they tend to believe that extraterrestrials are just another creation of God's, maybe a previous experiment before humans. Which,
Don't, as I say, I'm not smart enough to know there aren't other planets with other aliens. That I don't know. All I do know is that there are false things here and that people are getting encounters with aliens. And there is a whole sect of the supernatural side where they think that we're descendants of alien beings and that these alien gods and leaders are connecting to them and giving them ancient wisdom and giving them all the supernatural wisdom from all these planets. And I'm telling you, there's a whole side of BS. Okay. Whole lot of BS in all that.
Yeah, I mean, see, I'm truly torn on that because I have met some people who talk to extraterrestrials, and it doesn't seem like there's ill intent there. It doesn't seem like they're not egotistical people in any way. They're just normal people like you and me, and they just have this extra special thing about them, and that's all it is. They're not out there. They're not out there grabbing for money because of it. They're not out there using it for nefarious purposes. It's just part of their life. So then some of them don't even want it. Some of them just are forced to live with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it. I don't know. I feel like it's a mix. Maybe there's a mix out there. Maybe some of it's deception, some of it's deceiving, and but there are other dimensions in this world besides ours, and I feel like that it's a highly believed theory now that that's where some of these extraterrestrials come from is other dimensions. Because traveling through space that far, even if they have more advanced technology, is still like kind of science fictiony. Like it's light
But
years and
but
light years to travel just to come here and abduct somebody. Like why would they do that?
well, I hear you, and yeah, I tend to wonder why they. I love science fiction, so I watch plenty of science fiction movies, and all the aliens coming from all the planets to abduct us, and because they want to take over Earth. Why is Earth so great? It's like, so it's sometimes you just have to call it Hollywood. But the other dimensions is a very interesting point because if you remember, we talked about there's a whole realm behind us in another dimension that we can't see of angels and demons surrounding us all the time, looking for our permission because God set it up that way. We have to give permission to let the Spirit of God move, which lets his angels work with us, or we don't. And we yield either to the enemy, or Jesus said there's no middle ground. So if we're not yielding to God, we're allowing the enemy, which gives him permission and all his demons to work. You got these forces behind us. If you could see it, and I've seen it, I've seen more than I ever want to see. I've seen plenty of God's angels, and I've dealt with demons. And, you know, you can read all three books and you'll get a whole lot of info on that. The thing is that this stuff's real. So it's another dimension. Well, got to remember this other dimension, dog and pony show, they love to fool in any way they can. So good God fearing people can be just as fooled. We can all be fooled. And it doesn't all have to be ego, even though for those who, a lot of us have ego, right? And we love our ego to be stroked a little bit. We like to hear a kudo. We love to hear somebody say, you did good, right?
Of course.
We all love to think that maybe we tapped into something spiritual that not everyone taps into. That doesn't have to come across as uber ego, but it doesn't mean it doesn't stroke our ego, that
Yeah,
we just touched into something that not everybody touches into. Well, this whole side over here is stroking that ego all the time, enticing us away from the true and living God.
exactly. I mean, it makes sense. It really does. And you're right. We don't. I mean, it's a human condition to have our ego stroke. It really is. We want to be praised for things we do great, whether it's our job, our 9 to 5 job, or extracurriculars, or even in our home lives. We want to have something our ego stroked by people to tell us that we're doing a good job. It's how we
Mm-hmm.
thrive. It's how you teach kids to. It's how you teach a baby to do things is by telling them good job every time they do something because then they're going to do it again.
Right.
It's basic conditioning, but I don't know. I mean, in this world, there's more than we could ever understand. None of us could ever understand this world 100%, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the scary part of it all. Is there's always going to be things that are unknown that we don't know, and we're not gonna know. We're not meant to. We're not meant to know certain things. Feels like Bigfoot's leading that way nowadays too, but I feel like we're also on the edge or something really close to knowing more about that. I've been told a lot of things, and I see. I can't. I don't think you could say that about like Bigfoot and cryptids. I don't think they are the devil playing tricks. Because
No, no, actually, I personally have seen a Bigfoot. I would have never
really,
believed you. Yeah, I would have argued on the other side forever that that's all a bunch of baloney. but I saw one. It was in the let's see, when was it? Probably late 70s, 1980, around then. And my first wife, the one that was very difficult,
Yep.
and we had our oldest, who was 3, our second, who was 1, and she was pregnant with the third. And we loved to hike. We loved to go out, and we were outdoors people. And so we were camping, vacation. And we used to go down in the Hocking Hills of Ohio, and lots of trails and things to see. And there are a few bear around there. I've seen bear, and I was a, deer hunter. And so I'm hunter and fisherman and outdoorsman. And so I was used to outdoors, know what a bear looks like. And we're walking down this path, and we got way off the trail because we had heard that way back off, if you go way off the regular trails, there were ruins of old, like early 1800, remains
Yeah.
of settlements and buildings. And we just inquisitive wanted to go dig. So we went way, way away. Like we're walking down deer trails, right? There's no longer human trails.
Yeah.
And as we're walking along, and my 3-year-old hyperactive ADHD young man, couldn't be still for a moment, always throwing rocks and sticks and, doing everything. And we don't care, right? We're the only ones in the woods. And we were walking way miles off the path. And he's throwing, as I said, all the time. And as we got to near this one tree, and we about 20 feet away, he started throwing rocks and sticks at it. And all of a sudden, something comes sliding down out of the tree, black, like a black bear, hairy, covered in fur, standing on 2 feet, and ran on 2 feet and was gone literally in 4 leaps in 4 seconds, like out of sight across the woods. Ran so fast. So we saw a Bigfoot, and it was only about 6 foot tall. So if Harry of the Hendersons is true, then they're 8 or 9 feet. Joking a
It's
little on that.
it's
But
yeah. I mean, they're different heights. But I honestly could probably think you saw a juvenile, but
right, I think
yeah.
so too. Here's the funny thing: 1 week later, in the local newspaper, there had been 20 different people sightings of Bigfoot in that exact same area in the Hocking Hills. So yeah, I think it was a juvenile. But if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would go, nah, don't believe you. I would diss it all day long. But now I don't diss it.
See,
And I don't think that's paranormal. I just think they're real.
I see. I am I believe in Bigfoot 150%. I always have since I was a kid. Their origin, that's a whole nother debate topic. I used to believe one way thoroughly and not was never willing to look at other beliefs. Then starting the show, that has changed. Now I can see other people's point of views and kind of wonder what they are, whether they're originally from Earth, whether they're ultra terrestrial, whether they're extraterrestrial. Who knows? I mean, I won't know the answer until one of them comes out and tells us, or until somebody tells us. I mean, the government may know. They may. I wouldn't be surprised if they do because they know a lot of things that they don't tell us. But
Mm-hmm.
look at all this UFO stuff coming out that Trump's releasing supposedly soon, but and that he released back in 2022, but or 2020, back in 2020, I should say, not 22. But yeah, I mean, it's the government knows stuff that they're not telling us. They've known it for centuries, and they're not telling us. Teddy freaking Roosevelt saw Bigfoot, for God's sake. It's in his books. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well, I would have argued with anybody that's like, sure, whatever, because the little sighting pictures. And I even used to watch that stupid Bigfoot show, Hunting Bigfoot or whatever it was, because I was waiting because I had actually already seen Bigfoot. I'm like, okay, but like they were always like the never ending, we found sign, we found print. It's like, with all that time, energy, all your infrared cameras, you can't find anything. It's like, you know, but I know they're real. I've seen one. I watched it for seconds, but I watched it slide down out of the tree, and it had the coat like a black bear. Black bears don't stand upright on 2 feet. No, I know what a bear looks like if it's going to do. No, no, no. It was a biped. It was a human form completely, just covered in the same black hair as a black bear, long. And as they say, I think you're right, it's a juvenile. And it was
Yep.
probably in that tree hiding, thinking nobody can see me, except here's a 3-year-old throwing sticks and rocks at it. And then all
Which
of a sudden, probably thought, you see me, I got to go.
I mean, honestly, in all truthfulness, it may have thought it was one of it. It may have thought it was his parents he was hearing because it might have thought it was tree knocks because that's how they communicate. It's tree knocks. So it might have thought the sticks hitting the tree were tree knocks telling it to come down and go with them. So
But the fact that it ran off in 4 leaps in 4 seconds, I mean, it was just like I've seen deer run, okay, and they're fast. They can do some big leaps, and that Bigfoot left them in the dust. Like
yep.
it could outrun them all. No human can run that fast. I guarantee it. No deer could run that fast. And I've seen bear, and bear don't run that fast. You know.
I'll tell you, I just watched a movie the other night called Into the Grizzly Maze, and I have no urge to ever see a bear in the wilderness after watching that movie. But see, I am so happy I brought Bigfoot because I actually got a sighting on the show, and I freaking love when I get the sightings on the show. But tell people about your books and where they could find them and where they could find you.
Okay. Well, I've got 3 books: The Daily Stand, Set the Captives Free, and Set the Captives Free 2, TOO. The Daily Stand tells about how I met the Lord, and talks about spiritual warfare, talks about a lot of things that will just blow your mind, that the power of God, but not a dog and pony show, because I've had, in 56 years, I've gone to hell and back a lot of times. I talk about in my books, I had 40 years in the wilderness. So people think it's all like I'm talking rainbow and roses and life's been perfect. No, God's healed me of cancer. 3 years ago, I had congestive heart failure. Right now, I'm living through prostate cancer, and I don't have miracles happening on those. You know, my mom died of cancer, and she was a believer. So people go, why does God heal and why doesn't he not? I can't answer that. All I can say is the first book tells a lot about the miracles and power of God, deals with the 2 demoniacs in the river that was going to do rape and murder. You ought to read it. The second one, Set the Captives Free, deals with false belief systems, religious Stockholm syndrome, Egypt and the church, all the baloney that's been put in denominations and religions to like mess up the church, mess up beliefs. There's so much garbage out there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I asked Claude the other day, I said, I like Claude as a resource. And I said, how many denominations are there? And I assuming, you know, a couple dozen major religions, maybe a couple hundred, 300 denominations. Claude said there's between 47,000 to 49,000 denominations,
Yep.
estimated to be 64,000 by 2030. So, and if you study the Bible, it'll tell us that we don't battle against flesh and blood, but against rulers and principalities in high places. This is this whole devil and his whole masquerade team. And he's been there creating denominations to split up the church. So there's a lot of people, including me, who's lived through church hurt, leader abuse, church abuse, and we all have these false belief systems we've had to deal with. So second book deals with that. Third book is Evil's Great Masquerade. Is it divine light or deceptive woo? And that, you know, it covers a lot of what we're talking about here, and the supernatural and the paranormal and the false side of it. Okay. And how to know the difference, and then how to get free. So those 3 books are available. You can find information on my website, justtobeclear.com. It's the number 2, so it's just number 2beclear.com. You can find all 3 books on Amazon. There's a trilogy called Set the Captives Free. Trilogy is the series. So those 3 books. And I can give you the links. You can put them in your show notes if you'd like.
Oh, I will put those links in my show notes. I got them off. I can get them off Podmatch. But be sure to go check out those books, folks. They sound very intriguing and interesting. I might have to pick them up someday. I I have a long, long list of books I have to read from my previous guests. And when my kids are all grown, maybe I'll have time to actually do that. But until then, yeah, I'll get to them someday. I miss reading, but
Well, I'll be glad to get you PDFs of them or drop ship you the physical if you prefer. What do you like, physical books or PDFs?
oh, I do both, but I prefer physical. I'm old school. I like to hold it in my hand and actually read it, rather than sitting
Well,
on my rather than
I'll
sitting on my phone. Like
yeah, I'll send me an email with your address, and I'll drop
Yep.
ship you the 3 books, and,
Ooh.
glad to do it.
I will. Well, I will gladly add them to my collection of previous guest books. I got a nice one going. Someday it'll be my library when I have one of those. But,
Right.
uh, but folks, I want to thank Tom for coming on because it's been a really interesting conversation, very intriguing. I can't. I could talk to him probably for another couple hours, but unfortunately, Sunday mornings are busy times. But you all know where to find me in this show. If you don't know by now, just shame, shame. But check the outro. It's all there for the listeners and watchers. It's been the bottom of the screen the whole time. Don't be lazy. But come back. I don't know when I'll have another interview lined up. We'll see who reaches out to me because, as you all know, I don't look for interviews anymore. People come to me and I'll get them on. But I got so much backlog, I don't need to look. um, but come check it out next time. I'll be around eventually. And until then, you got plenty of older episodes to keep you company. So have a good one, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hopefully, it's better weather than where I am. Have a good one.